Hello and nice to see you. Let me share the screen
We can see you. We can hear you.
and you should be able to see my screen as well.
Yes.
Okay, great. So let me then start the introduction to how can you secure your Zabbix instance while using Zabbix 6.4. And of course, you might wonder why even should I think about the security? So what are the benefits that security gives me? And I think the answer to that is these days is pretty obvious, since of course, well, Zabbix is a monitoring solution. That's first. Second, we do have an environment which has a lot of data, different kind of data, sensitive data, not so sensitive data, passwords, metrics, a lot of it. And we want to make sure this data remains confidential. So nobody except the people that must have access to this data will have access to this data. And even if some kind of security breach happens, even if somebody gets to, let's say, the traffic itself, to the data, we want to make sure that, this data is encrypted, that data remains safe in any kind of situation. And with Zabbix, it's even more important because, again, we monitor with Zabbix, we collect data with Zabbix. We keep the information about what kind of performance issues we have. We have the information about what kind of problems we have. To get to this information, sometimes we might need to use credentials, so logins, passwords, addresses, IP or DNS, that again keep the information about how to get somewhere and where that something is located. So of course, that must be kept safe from any unauthorized person, from any unauthorized access. So we definitely want to achieve that. And of course, the question then is, how can we achieve the security in Zabbix? And I must say there's a lot of ways to do that. You have a really big selection on how can you achieve that. And those options come from all the aspects, all the sides of Zabbix, all around all the components of Zabbix. So here you can see kind of simplified security diagram of the Zabbix itself. And you can see that each single point in Zabbix can be secured, starting, of course, with the user access, so how they will access and what they will access. Then, of course, their access and their communication between the front end and their own working station, be that inside secure facilities or outside of those. Then, again, the communication of Zabbix and all of its components. So communication between agents, proxies, command line utilities, and of course, the database can be secured, can be encrypted. And then we can also add an additional layer of security for all the sensitive data, for all the potential credentials that we might keep in Zabbix using the vaults. But that's in really short. Let's take a bit of a deeper look into this. So authentication mechanism in Zabbix can be integrated using, again, the solutions that are already implemented by the company. So we can use LDAP or SAML to manage the user groups, to manage the attributes that users in those user groups have and permissions they will get. So essentially, we don't need to manage multiple different aspects of authentication. We can just work with one central method to control the access of the users. For that, we can also use the roles to, again, make sure that only specific users will see not only specific kind of information, but will have access to specific GUI elements, including, again, giving access even not just to your own colleagues who will be doing some, let's say, technical monitoring, but to the customers who just want to see their SLAs and the current status of their equipment. So they can only see very basic information, but still enough for them to be calm about what's going on. And of course, logging. So you can always check what was done, when was done, and what was changed because of it. So audit is also there. And of course, again, multiple different encryption methods are available for different components of Zabbix, for basically every component of Zabbix, you could say, including not just configuring what kind of encrypted connection will be used, but at the same time, what kind of ciphers will be used. So you can go really deep down to find, again, the best kind of security for your environment. So let's now go even deeper and let's take at each type of security in details. So first thing that we usually start with is the front-end security. So the same front-end, which allows you to see the data, and what's even more important, configure the data and view the configuration. So it can be achieved really easily. Now there's quite a lot of guides to do that for the Zabbix front end and just any, let's say, web page as it is. And to do that, to make sure the users will be able to work with Zabbix in a secure way, we can use something as simple as HTTPS. So what is HTTPS? Well, HTTPS is basically HTTP, but with encryption and verification, to put it simply. So these days, it's quite a challenge to find something that some portal, especially if that portal, again, gets you access to sensitive data that works with just HTTP. So now everything, I would say, works with HTTPS, and Zabbix, your Zabbix, should not be an exception to that rule. So that's a very basic and very important rule that you should apply in your environment. And this way, again, Zabbix frontend will be accessed using only secured communications. And if with HTTP, anyone can potentially get to your traffic and see what's in the traffic, see what you pass. So logins, passwords, and maybe the configuration, depending on how long they will be. With HTTPS, you will be safe from that. So even if somebody gets the HTTPS traffic, which uses, again, TLS to encrypt it, they will get essentially encrypted data, and they will not see anything useful in it. And even if they will try to somehow unencrypt it, this will be basically their, I would say, at least live goal, because this will take many, many years. And by that time, you will definitely change a lot of things and improve security even more to make sure your data is safe. So, okay, front-end secured, we configured HTTPS. What do we usually do next? Then, of course, we make sure that users which are already in Zabbix are secure as well. So nobody except those who should be able to log in will log in. So how do we achieve user security in Zabbix? Well, the first very simple basic step is the password policy. So password complexity policy specifically. So now in Zabbix, in 6.4 as well, but actually starting from 6.0, you can again define the password policy and specify how strong the passwords must be so they can actually be used. And you can see in the example right here that you can specify again how long the password must be, what kind of characters must it contain, uppercase, lowercase, digits, some special characters to make it even more secure, and of course exceptions so that you cannot use, again, username of your own, name or surname. And of course, it must not be one of the common or context-specific passwords. You know, like it's not a good idea to use the Zabbix password after you already installed and start configuring Zabbix, or something like, you know, those top passwords which we heard about thousands of times, like QWERTY, like password, like love, and all that stuff. So make sure to start with the password policy. And if some user will need to change it, so the password itself, they will need to also enter the current password, which is also a really important step in the security. But in this case, you know, occasionally all of us may leave the working station and then leave Zabbix open. And that somebody potentially could go up to the working station and say like, oh, that's Zabbix. Oh, there's user open. And previously they potentially could change the password. So now they won't be able to do that because they will also need to know your current password, because this must be specified before you will be able to change the password to a new one. Okay, let's say all users now have secure passwords. What do we do next? Well, the next logical step would be, of course, to create the users, additional users, and make sure to double check if their types provide them the correct privileges. So in this case, I expect a lot of you know, but Zabbix has 3 basic user types. Those user types are like the starting points from which you can then start managing differently permissions. So we have Zabbix Superadmin, which is the user type which has unlimited access to everything by default. So those are usually us, the network, the monitoring administrators. Then we have Zabbix admins, those who will also work with Zabbix, who will monitor and configure some things. And for those, we must specify what exactly can they configure and what exactly they will see. And then the Zabbix users, the users who will be able by default to basically just view the data. So for them, of course, we also must configure what kind of data they will be able to view, because by default, in most of cases, no users should see all the data. And quite often, most of the users don't want to see all the data. They want to see, again, something specific. And with the user types, you will start again with the basics. So you will define what users can do. Can they do everything? Can they do and change something? Or can they only view? And after that, you can specify the user roles. So user roles allow you to modify what each single user will be able to see after they will log. What kind of menus? Will they see configuration? Will they see administration? Will they see any network maps or dashboards? Again, you will be able to control explicitly what exactly. So like in this case, you can even create a user who will be able just to create maintenance. So then when, let's say, some engineers will be conducting maintenances, they will be able to log into Zabbix, immediately see the maintenance, create it, and exit Zabbix. But that's not the only reason to use user roles. Another reason is, of course, again, the customers. So if we're an MSP and we want to give access to our customers, again, to see SLAs, to see maybe the list of problems, maybe both at the same time, we can also do that with the help of user roles. So you can create customer-specific accounts with access to hosts to the equipment, which is related to those customers. And then they will be able to see, again, the current performance, the SLAs, but they will not be able to see other customers, or an example, they will not be able to change the configuration. So something suddenly will go missing. So it will be very static environment, but yet really important for the customer, so they can feel that they know what exactly is going on with their environment. And then, of course, we have the user groups. So in case you have multiple different teams, which will be working with specific, again, equipment. So maybe you have database engineers, network engineers, Linux engineers, Windows engineers, and so on and so on. So they will, of course, be responsible for specific equipment, and they will definitely want to, again, see and work with the same specific equipment. And using the user groups, you will be able to define, again, which users will be able to change configuration of what specific host groups, and which user groups will be able just to see the data collected, the problems detected, and so on. So you can always limit, again, who can change something and who can only view something. But this all sounds like you will need to do quite some manual changing. And actually, now in 6.4, you don't have to. Now Zabbix adds the JIT, or just-in-time user provisioning, for LDAP and SAML authentication. So essentially, you can configure your own, again, LDAP and SAML servers and use the attributes available in those to create the users and manage the user permissions in Zabbix as soon as they will try to log in. So they will be taken from the LDAP groups and so on, which allows you to automatically provision users or deprovision in case maybe they left the company and the access must be disabled, or just again manage the permissions of all the users while using the same central management tool, which allows you to essentially work with enterprise-grade security access, because you will have again the central control. You can build your own control center, and Zabbix will be part of it to make sure, again, not only you know what is going on with the environment, you also control what other users know about the environment, so they will not see too much and they will also not miss anything important, because again, all the attributes will be propagated to them in Zabbix. And for the same reason, the just-in-time user provisioning also allows you to use essentially the SCIM, or system for cross-domain identity management, which is the open standard to automate user provisioning or deprovisioning, again, across multiple applications. And part of those applications is now Zabbix 6.4. Just remember that user provisioning without enabled and configured SCIM is made only for the login action. And users provisioned by SCIM, of course, will also be created in Zabbix to make sure, again, as soon as they are provisioned, they will be able to access Zabbix with appropriate permissions. Okay, so frontend is secured, users and the information is secured, but maybe not all information is secure. So users will be able to configure some specific things, view some specific data, but what about the configuration data? So they will see it. Does that mean they will see absolutely all the logins and the passwords used in monitor? Not necessarily. So how's that? Well, overall, of course, you can always use the unsafe user macros, which are the simplest way of using the macros. So you create a macro and you define a value for it. And sometimes those values can be usernames and the passwords. And that means with this approach, if you will give access someone to the configuration, they will see those. So what can you do so they will not see those? Well, first of all, you can use safe user macros. So you can specify that you want to use not just a text-based user macro, but a secret text user macro. And in this case, all the values behind the user macros will be hidden and nobody will be able to see them. So even if they will click on the edit button or if they will export parts of the configuration, those will remain empty. So values will be hidden. But there is a but. So are they completely safe? Not exactly. So if multiple users have access to the database, they might actually still get to the macro values. So if they will go to the database, will look for the secret macros, they will find the secrets, they will find the logins, and they will find the passwords. So what can you do to avoid this? You can use even safer user macros. So Zabbix 6.4 supports HashiCorp and CyberArk vaults to actually store all your secrets in a secure way and manage them separately. So only the users who will have access to HashiCorp or CyberArk vaults will be able to see the actual values. And it's not that simple to access the vault. So secure tokens will be required to access the vaults to make sure, again, macro values. And not just that, you can actually store in them the database access credentials will be stored secure. So what is a vault? Well, vault is just exactly what the word vault suggests, except in this case, the contents of the vault will be the secrets such as passwords, secrets such as credentials. And vault will serve as a unified interface, which allows you, or in this case, Zabbix frontend or Zabbix server to get to those secrets and take them from the vault when needed. An example for data collection. You will be able to control the access to the vault and levels of access to the vault, including the audit log in case you want to track what did the people who have access to the vault actually change. And initially, vault is sealed. It is sealed by 5 keys, and you will need at least 3 to actually unseal it. So if you wish, you can share those 3 keys with your most trusted comrades in the company to make sure, again, only when you will be together, you will be able to unseal it and get to those secrets. So how to configure the vault? Well, Zabbix now has few configurations options for that. So first of all, of course, you will need to select which vault you will use, HashiCorp or CyberArk, what will be the vault token for the Zabbix to actually make the successful connection, where the vault is located, and if needed, connections with the vault can be encrypted to make sure, again, those are completely secure. So after the vault is configured and the secrets are defined in the vault, so you have put the secrets in the vault, in Zabbix, you will need to select the vault secret option and specify the path to the secrets in the vault. The path is, of course, custom. You can create in the vault what kind of path there will be and what kind of names that path will have. And there will be no way to see directly from Zabbix what is and what are those secrets. Okay, so now, again, everything is almost safe, but is it though? Of course, there are internal communications. So Zabbix components will also exchange the data, and potentially, again, someone can try to get the data which is being exchanged between components. That's why we provide a lot of options to protect communication between Zabbix and its components. So you can encrypt communications between Zabbix server and proxy, Zabbix server, proxies, and Zabbix agent, and command line utilities as well. So how exactly can you do that? Well, again, the main methods to do this in Zabbix, native to Zabbix, is to use PSKs, which are pre-shared keys, or the certificates. And those can be used not only between Zabbix components like Zabbix servers, agents, and so on, but also between the front end and the Zabbix database and between the Zabbix server and the database. So connection to the database can be encrypted as well. So then, of course, the next question would be, what is the difference between the certificates and pre-shared keys? Well, certificates are commonly considered to be more secure since they provide asymmetric encryption and identity authentication, meaning you will see to whom the certificate was issued and by who, so who was the certificate authority, which adds a really important layer of, again, protection. And to track which certificates are still actual and still not, Zabbix can use the certificate revocation list or CRL. With pre-shared keys, it's a bit more basic. It's still secure, but it's considered to be a bit less, even though you would need quite a lot of time to crack this. But pre-shared keys offer the symmetric encryption, so they are easier and faster to set up. Plus, they are better for smaller environments when you have, performance constraints with limited CPU power, or let's say the network quality, would need to be better to use certificates. But the certificates, again, even though they offer stronger encryption, they require more CPU power. And the common industry standard is the RSA key length of 2048 characters. Those are considered to be unbreakable. And as of the moment, as of 2020 specifically, the largest RSA key publicly known to be cracked is RSA 250, so 250 characters. And if you're not sure how well your environment will do, you can use OpenSSL to actually speed test how well it will do with certificates and the keys of different length variation. And you can think of it as Well, I would say almost as values per second. So this is approximately how the communication between the database and the server could work. Not exactly, but a bit close. In addition to that, since again, we also might deploy agents mainly for Linux, Unix, Windows systems, and we want to be sure when we will start monitoring them. So from the very start, the data already will be encrypted. So for that, Zabbix 6.4 also is the secure auto registration. So you can define the pre-shared keys in Zabbix administrative section. As soon as you will define the identity and the key, they will be hidden, so nobody will be able to see them. And even the first auto registration attempt, so the agents can automatically add themselves to Zabbix, will be already encrypted. And if the auto registration is done through the proxy, then don't forget to protect the proxy communication as well, since it also supports the pre-shared keys and certificates. And about that encrypted connection to the database. So it is available starting from version 5.0 and currently is implemented by using TLS. Supported crypto libraries at the moment is GNU-TLS from version 3.118 and OpenSSL, and 6.4 we added the version 3.0 as a supported one, plus LibreSSL. And in case of the database, only certificates can be used to secure the connection to the database, but it can secure the connections between the front end and the database, and Zabbix server and the database can be secure, which currently is supported for the following DB engines natively, which is MySQL and PostgreSQL. But you could use it for as well using the client configuration. And it's really simple to configure, especially with MySQL. With MySQL, it would be enough to just use required, since when you use MySQL, it actually generates certificates well, as soon as installation is finished. But you can also verify the certificate authority. So again, who issued the certificate, or verify full to verify that the host name to which you will connect, or the databases, will be the same as the common name in the certificate. And then you just specify, again, in the front end itself, the database LSCA file, path to it essentially, to the key, to the certificate, and again, the cipher list if you would want to use a custom one. And about the custom cipher lists. So if you are familiar with those, then a cipher suite is essentially a set of algorithms that help to secure the network connections using the transport layer security. And there are different key exchange algorithms and authentication and encryption and message ones. So of course, you need to, before starting to configure any ciphers, check what is currently considered to be the most secure or the fastest option, depending on your preference. But in any case, it is really preferred to use the TLS version 1.3, since the version 1.3 shortens the handshake takes significantly, up to 30%, because of having a simplified key exchange and overall are considered to be more secure. And in Zabbix, we can define custom ciphers between the Zabbix server and Zabbix proxy communications, Zabbix server and agents, for command line utilities, and between the Zabbix server and database and frontend and database. So which ciphers to use? Well, again, it really depends on what are you looking for. Of course, the most advanced cipher suites will be most secure, but they can be potentially a bit slower. Or again, you might work with older systems, and they may just not support the latest cipher suite. So you will need to do a proper research again to see what exactly is supported in the environment, what is exactly currently considered to be the best option, and choose from that. And after all the communications, after all the users, after the front end is secure, there are small steps left. And in this case, it's of course what kind of data can be collected by, in this case, agents. Since, as you know, agents can collect almost any kind of information. And that includes information from configuration files, log files, maybe again, password files, and so on. And in addition to that, Zabbix agent can actually execute remote commands on the remote host. By default, of course, remote commands are disabled, but still, somebody might enable them. And also on Windows, Zabbix agent runs as local system by default. So someone then can run some sensitive command or again, download some malicious source. So how can you restrict what agent can do? It's really simple. There are now two parameters in the agent configuration files, which are called allow key and deny key, and the name explains what exactly they're responsible for. So allow key allows you to specify what is allowed, what remote commands, what data collections, what keys. And deny key, of course, allows you to specify what is denied. So what kind of checks are not allowed to be executed or what kind of commands. And what's great about them, they actually support wildcards, meaning that you don't have to specify each single key separately. You can, again, just use a wildcard like in this case. And in this case, that's a default setting, but still it denies execution of any remote commands. But you can add a list of the commands you would wish to execute as allow keys. And maybe you have some questions, because that would be all from my side.
Thank you, Alexander. And we do have a couple of questions. So I'll start from the top. Is it possible to change user credentials from Zabbix UI instead of Active Directory integration? So I guess we're talking about AD users.
Overall, they will use the AD if it's the JIT itself, but you can have multiple groups. You can have different user groups with different access, and you will be able to change password for different.
So for internal users, yeah, you can change them manually. For AD, you'd have to change them in AD. And yeah, you can have a mix of both. Some users with internal logins, others with AD logins. Can admin user change other users' passwords without knowing the current one in case the user forgets their password?
Admin user cannot change passwords at all. So it would be a super admin then. Only super admins can change passwords. But yes, they would be able to change passwords, super admins, if another user forgets.
I think what the person meant by admin is the default admin login, which is super admin. So
in this case,
yeah.
Yes.
Can I use certificates with ECC elliptic curve cryptography between server proxy and or server agent?
I'm not sure I will be able to answer this. Maybe Kaspers can help me.
Yes, so unfortunately they are not supported. There is a feature request, and you can find answer in documentation. Yes, the documentation states that Zabbix supports only RSA-based certificates currently. Yeah.
Thank you. Has there been a feature request for a Zabbix CVE dashboard that lists Zabbix CVEs against the running version? So I guess like a widget or something like that that you have on your dashboard.
A good question. I guess I will be not able to answer this as well, but I can check it right now out of curiosity.
Yeah,
and
so
maybe
yeah,
after
go
this
ahead.
We can create it.
Go ahead. So we have our feature request page, our feature request projects called abbreviated as ZBX Next. And there you can see all of the feature requests. This is what Alexander's is checking right now. So if it is not there, then we recommend you create it. I think the idea is good. I've heard this idea before somewhere actually. So it could be that there's either an internal discussion going on, no promises, or some other community members have already mentioned it. There is, the security advisories page on our website that lists all of the current CVEs, but that's not inside Zabbix, and it doesn't compare it like against the current version if you use like the website widget and display it.
So as I see, there's no such feature request, but we can definitely create it as Arthur's described, because again, yep, the idea sounds really nice.
Thank you. And that will be all, guys. Thank you a lot